Hello everyone. In the previous video, we have discussed how the cerebrum look like from the external view, the part of forebrain which we have discussed, the big brain, we can say the cerebrum. So in this video, we will conclude that forebrain part, the total structures in the forebrain part, and we are also going to discuss some interesting structure inside this forebrain which is called as limbic system. We will discuss that also. So the point is, when you observe the internal structure of the cerebrum, when you cut open, when we have a sagittal cut. So when you apply a sagittal cut on the cerebrum, that means you cut from the top in the center like this, what you observe? So if you observe, if assume this as the cerebrum, so we have cut the cerebrum part, okay. So inside the cerebrum we can see the corpus callosum. You know that we are having a band of nerves attaching to cerebral hemispheres which we consider as corpus callosum, which we discussed previously also. So this is corpus callosum. Just assume corpus callosum, this is corpus callosum. Now that's not the point. Inside the cerebral hemisphere, the sagittal cut, you can observe that around some 5 to 6 millimeters length, around some 5 to 6 millimeters of length, we can see a layer of grayish appearance. So around this cerebral hemisphere, we can say. So the cerebral hemisphere will observe some grayish appearance. So we can see some grayish appearance here in this region. And almost 10% of the brain's neurons, almost 10% of the brain's neurons, to be simple I can say 10 billion neurons, 10 billion neurons are located in this area, the grayish colored area. What do you call this grayish colored area? This grayish colored area is called as cerebral cortex. Now the doubt is, why it is called as cortex? You all know in biological terms cortex means the outer zone, right? Now the doubt is why it is grayish colored appearance. So the reason the cerebral cortex is grayish colored, the reason it is having cell bodies. So it is the area having all the cell bodies in it. So cell bodies of all the neurons are present in this region. So you all know cell bodies contains Nissl granules which increase the density of the cytoplasm, which increase the color density, and what they appear is they appear grayish in color. So the cerebral cortex will have all the cytons which are releasing or taking the signals from the other parts of the brain. So now from this cerebral cortex we have the next part which are called as basal ganglions. So all these axons, or we can say nerve fibers from the cerebral cortex, all the nerve fibers will come down forming the white matter. So basically the cerebral cortex can also be considered as the grey matter because it is grey in color. Now all those axons coming out of the cytons, they will come down into the next area, and what they will do is they will form association. They will form ganglions. So this region, what they will do is they will group together and they will form a ganglion called as basal ganglion. I use one more color. So here they will all join up and they will form a ganglion called as basal ganglion. Just above the corpus callosum, you can see there is formation of a ganglion called as basal ganglion. So in cerebrum part we can see the cerebral cortex, and we can also observe the second part which is called as basal ganglion. So this basal ganglion is very important because from there only the signals can pass to the next parts, or from next part the signals will come up. So here these basal ganglions will group up and they will maintain the subconscious levels of the brain. All the involuntary signals, they will be sent down, or all the signals required will be going up through this basal ganglion. This basal ganglion have very important role in the parts of activating the visceral organs, the internal organs. That's very important. We'll discuss that in one more system. But just remember, in the forebrain we can see these two regions. When you cut open, we can see the grey matter and we can see the basal ganglion, which is actually considered as white matter. You all know the axons are already covered by myelin sheath, The myelin sheaths are having fat in them, so always fats are white color. So this basal ganglion will appear somewhat white color, somewhat white or creamish white color in the sense, right? So now the point is, you all we have discussed in the previous video also, the cerebral cortex is not flat. The cerebral cortex is having several depressions and is having several elevations. So we have seen this, we have depressions and elevations on the cerebral cortex. So it is not normal. It is having some depressions, having elevations, depressions, elevations all around its cortex. So what do you call as depressions and elevations? I'll tell you. The depressions. So I'll just write here. So if this is a outer membrane of the cerebral cortex, that is pia mater, we can say, right? So the pia mater, assume, or the outer membrane, we can see the depressions here, and we can also see the elevations. So you are seeing the elevation part and you are seeing the depression part. What do you call the depression part? The depression part is called as sulci. The depression part is called as sulci, and the elevation part is called as gyri. The depression part is called as sulci and the elevation part is called as gyri. And what is the use of this gyri and sulci in the region? So you all know the gyri and sulci, the depressions, they increase the area. What they will do is they will increase the area of accommodation for neurons. Accommodation for neurons. Not only that, according to some researchers, it is said that around 2/3 of the cerebral cortex, almost 2/3 of cerebral cortex is present in these foldings or in the depressions and elevations. So almost we can say, so if I write it here, so in this gyri and sulci, almost 2/3 of cerebral cortex, 2/3 of cerebral cortex is embedded inside these gyri and sulci. It is embedded inside this gyri and sulci. So that's the main point. Now it is the one which is giving us lots of neural space. Which one? The gyri and sulci. So that's the cerebrum part. That is the cerebrum part for us. Okay. So now we will go for the next part of the brain. Now all these nerves will not stay quiet. They will bundle up. They'll bundle up and they form even ganglions, as we have discussed here. They form the basal ganglions and they form synapses and they start coming out through the other parts. Now what is the next part of the forebrain? Now if you observe next part of the forebrain, that is diencephalon. So next part which we have to discuss in the forebrain, it is diencephalon part. So we'll discuss that also. So the next part is diencephalon. Now this is the most important part of the brain. Why? We'll see. So now assume this is cerebral cortex, in the noting of cerebral cortex, just we'll think that this is the corpus callosum. So just think this is the corpus callosum part. You know, we have the genu part and the splenium part. So this is the genu and this is the splenium part. So on this we have the cerebral cortex. No need of discussing cerebral cortex right now. Okay. So this diencephalon is present at the posterior end of the cerebrum. That means if this is a cerebrum, it will be wrapping the diencephalon. That means you cannot see diencephalon from the top. You can see only from the bottom. You can see from the bottom, or you have to cut it to observe the diencephalon. Okay. Now in diencephalon we have some divisions. Diencephalon is also consisting of 3 parts. So I am removing the cerebral cortex or cerebrum part, not required now. So it is having 3 parts. The first part, it is called as epithalamus. Epithalamus. Second part is called as thalamus. And third part is called as hypothalamus. So actually this word thalamus has been derived from the botanical language. The etymology is from the botany. Thalamus is a bulb-like structure or a swollen structure. So if you observe under this corpus callosum, we can see a swollen part. We can see a swollen part called as thalamus. So we can see a big swollen part called as thalamus. We'll discuss about this thalamus, don't worry. So where this thalamus is located, as I have said, below the corpus callosum. So if I draw the cerebral cortex. Cerebral cortex comes like this, and the pia mater goes in. The pia mater goes in and forms the ventricle here. We'll discuss that ventricle also. If you remember the cerebrospinal fluid, here we have the ventricle where the cerebrospinal fluid is delivered or it is taken up. So how the CSF is produced, we'll discuss now. So we have a swollen portion below the corpus callosum called as thalamus, and on the thalamus we have a non-neural portion. So we have a vascular portion on the thalamus. So on the thalamus we have a vascular portion, or we can say non-neural portion, which is called as epithalamus. So on this thalamus we have a non-neural, very important to be discussed. This epithalamus is what? Non-neural, but it is vascular. That means it is having blood vessels around it. Now this epithalamus has the capacity to form the anterior choroid plexus. So we are discussing about the epithalamus here. I will just rub this off. So this epithalamus is the one which is forming what? The anterior choroid plexus. So here it will form the anterior choroid plexus, where all the blood will come up, all the blood capillaries will come up, and from the blood what happens? The fluid, the cerebrospinal fluid is formed, it is released into this ventricle. So here we have some ventricles called lateral ventricles. We will discuss about the ventricular system when we discuss the next part. Okay, when we discuss the ventricular system separately, we will discuss on this lateral ventricle also. So these lateral ventricles will continue to the pia mater and the subarachnoid space and all those things. So from this epithalamus, from this anterior choroid plexus, which is forming the anterior choroid plexus, from this anterior choroid plexus the fluid will ooze out. The CSF will ooze out. To be exact, what is this? This is the CSF. So the CSF oozes out of the epithalamismic portion, which is called as anterior choroid plexus. Now, what is the use of this thalamus? This thalamus is the main relay center. Very important point. Thalamus is the main relay center. It is the main relay center, I should say RE. Okay, so it is the main relay center of all the signals from the lower parts of the brain. See, for example, below this we have the midbrain formation. So the neural bundle will continue and they will form the midbrain here, and we have a cerebellum behind this. So we have cerebellum here. I am just putting a small circle. So we have cerebellum here that we will discuss in coming classes, don't worry. So whatever the signals coming from the basal part of the brain, or signals coming from the cortex part of the brain, or from the basal ganglions, all those signals are relayed. Maybe taken from here, they will be given to the, they will be dispersed to the top parts, or taken from top parts, they will be dispersed to the lower parts of the brain. So epithalamus is the most important relay center, and very important thing to be remembered. Sorry, thalamus we are discussing. The thalamus is the zone of all the sensory neurons passing through. So the signals from all the sensory neurons, starting with the optical nerve, auditory nerve, or the tactile nerves, the tactile receptor nerves, okay, or the other nerves, the cochlear nerve we can say. So all the sensory nerves, they have to pass through this thalamus. They have to pass through this thalamus, and then they have to go to the cerebrum for the analysis, except one sense organ, that is the smell, that is the olfactory nerves. So olfactory nerves will not require this thalamus for the sending of signals to the brain. Then how they will, we'll discuss that. Don't worry, we'll discuss that when we discuss the next important part, that is limbic system. Anyway, so this is the relay center. To be simple, it's the relay center, and it is having the nuclei. So remember, nuclei. So this thalamus is also having the nuclei. So nuclei means what? You are thinking of nucleus in cells. No. So nucleus is a group of nerves. Nuclei is a group of cytons in the brain. So whenever someone says nuclei in the brain, it means group of cytons. Okay. So the nuclei in this thalamus has the capacity to produce a chemical neurotransmitter called as acetylcholine, ACH. When we discuss the synapse, if you don't know about this acetylcholine, you can go to the previous videos, you can observe there. When we discuss the synapse in the first nerve impulse conduction, you can see there. So this acetylcholine is released from this thalamus region, not epithalamus, thalamus region, so that the nerves will be activated downwards. So it is important there, thalamus is important. Now after thalamus, one more important thing to be remembered. In this epithalamus, the dorsal part of epithalamus, we can see a small bulb-like structure. So on the dorsal portion of the epithalamus, we can see a bulb-like structure called as pineal body. So this pineal body is important for some of the functions. It will regulate the hormonal secretion, one of the hormone secretion, melanocyte stimulating hormone, if I am not wrong, or thymosin, I think thymosin, whatever it is. So there is some hormone which is been released by this pineal body. It is also important for the regulation, endocrine regulation or the chemical regulation of the body. So the pineal body is the dorsal side, located on the dorsal side of the epithalamus, not the thalamus, epithalamus. Okay. Now, next part, at the lower portion of the thalamus, we can see one more extension. So we can see an extension called as hypothalamus. So as this is present below the thalamismic region, what can you call it? It is called as hypothalamus. So hypothalamus is the next most important part to be discussed. Why? Because hypothalamus contains a small gland called as pituitary gland. So hypothalamus contains an extension which is called as pituitary gland, or it is called as hypophysis. Because it is present below the thalamus, it is called as hypophysis. Now what can you call pineal body? Epiphysis, because it is present on the thalamus, or we can say on this diencephalon to be exact. It is called as epiphysis. So epiphysis is the topmost part, the pineal body, and hypophysis is the lowermost part. And one more thing, this pituitary is the master gland of the body. You all know this pituitary is the master gland of the body, and this pituitary is attached to the hypothalamus with a stalk, with a long stalk called as infundibulum. It is attached with the help of infundibulum. Now that is the anatomy of the diencephalon. Now what is the functions of diencephalon? We have discussed epithalamus will form the coronary plexus, thalamus will help in relay center, but this small hypothalamus has the main important functions of this total set. Though it is only 4 grams, this hypothalamus is only 4 grams, around 4 grams, but it maintains almost all the visceral activities of the body. So what are the functions of this hypothalamus? We will write now, we will discuss, we will see. So hypothalamus, as I have already said, it is the most important part. So what will hypothalamus do is, hypothalamus is the coordination center or control center. Hypothalamus, it is the coordination and control center, we can say. Control and coordination center. Control and coordination center for visceral activities. Visceral involuntary activities. You obviously, visceral means they will be involuntary. So visceral involuntary activities. So it is the one which maintains all these things. Now, what type of functions? For example, maintenance of homeostasis in the body. Maintenance of the homeostasis. Maintenance of the hunger, anger, sleep, emotions. Okay. So these are all behavior patterns, involuntary behavior patterns. Now these things are important because why means they are not alone done by the hypothalamus. The hypothalamus takes help of some other system. I'll discuss that. It is called limbic system, emotional controller system. But main role is done by this hypothalamus. So moreover, it maintains homeostasis. We'll concentrate on that part. What is homeostasis? Homeostasis means maintenance of the constant internal conditions. Homeostasis means maintenance of constant internal conditions. For example, the BP should be maintained 120/80. We should maintain the osmotic balance. That means the water balance inside the body. You should maintain the osmotic balance. You should maintain the breathing control. So breathing control is done by this thing with help of some other part. As I said, we have some links also. So breathing control, osmoregulation, BP, temperature, body temperature. You all know body temperature should be 37 degrees Celsius, which is again maintained by the diencephalon part, or the diencephalon, the hypothalamic part. And you all know this hypothalamus is the controller of the master gland, pituitary. So it is the master of endocrine orchestra. To be simple, hypothalamus is called as master of endocrine orchestra. Now this is chemical coordination. I know that we'll discuss chemical coordination in coming videos. But as I've said, hypothalamus have all these functions. It maintains all the things. All the emotions are controlled here. But when you use a word called as emotions, these emotions are controlled with the help of some other system. So it will coordinate with some other parts of the cerebrum or some other parts of the forebrain, and it forms a limbic system, the emotional control system. We'll discuss that emotional control system in the coming videos or the next video. Okay, so these are the main functions of this hypothalamus. Though it is 4 grams, it maintains all your visceral involuntary activities. It is maintained by this particular hypothalamus. Now that's about the total forebrain. Okay, anyone having doubts, anyone having suggestions, you can put me in the comment section. I'll address them and I'll try to do it properly. Okay, so in the next video we'll discuss the emotional controlling system, that is the limbic system. This is hypothalamus, and we have some more parts which are combined to form the limbic system, and limbic system will control all the emotions. It controls all the memory. It controls some other functions also. We'll discuss that in the coming video. Thank you. Mohan Krishna signing off.